At times we hear about children that commit brutal murders, although society perceives them as incapable of anything evil. So can we describe an 11-year-old as a monster? Or are the real monsters the ones that determine the child to behave this way? We heard about notorious examples like the 10-year-old girl named Mary Bell that strangled 2 toddlers to death, or the 9-year-old serial killer Cayetano Santos and the 8-year-old serial killer Amarjeet Sada. They all had something in common: abusive parents. Today we are going to be unraveling the story behind Nevada 10 crime, so let's dive in. This tale brings us back to the summer of 2004, a time when the modern internet was forming and it was still run by forums and messaging boards. On June 1st, 2004, in Sasebo, Nagasaki, Japan, took place one of the darkest murders to have ever occurred in that area. The students at Okabu Elementary School were getting ready for lunch. 12-year-old Satomi Mitarai was invited to an empty classroom by her classmate Natsumi, who later became known to the entire world as Girl A because of Japan's laws that protect the identity of minors. As soon as the two were alone, Natsumi told Satomi to sit on a chair because she would show her a new game. Then she slit Satomi's throat, arms, and wrists. Natsumi waited till Satomi bled to death and then returned to the classroom. Her clothes were smeared in blood, and in her hands she was holding a bloodied box cutter. The teacher feared the young girl might have cut herself, but that's when she said, "This is not my blood." So the teacher went to investigate what had happened, and that's when Satomi was found face down, covered in blood. Unfortunately, nobody could save her, as she had already suffered heart failure from massive blood loss. The school staff and the whole community were left stunned, as they couldn't understand how an 11-year-old girl could commit such a brutal crime. Satomi's father arrived at the crime scene and was shocked when he saw his daughter's lifeless body. He also lost his wife to cancer a few years ago, and now was forced to endure a heartbreaking loss again. The police was contacted and Natsumi was taken into custody. She immediately admitted guilt, and while sobbing uncontrollably, she said, "I did something wrong, didn't I? I'm sorry, I'm sorry." The night she spent at the police station, she refused to converse with anybody, nor eat or drink. The next day, she finally accepted to give an explanation as to why she had killed her friend. Natsumi told investigators that her and Satomi had been good friends for a long time, until an online argument erupted between them. Natsumi kept a publicly available website wherein she would post poetry of an increasingly dark nature, horror gifs, a short story related to the urban legend known as the Red Room, which involves a curse, and the ultimate consequence of it would be that the victim would commit suicide, resulting in a room drenched in blood. According to Natsumi, Satomi had made mean comments about her online, mainly targeting her weight and personality. She would also call her names like Goody Goody. Natsumi asked her friend to apologize, but she would refuse. So at some moment, Natsumi snapped and started to plan the murder. She told investigators that she was inspired to use a box cutter after watching a movie called Battle Royale, where this method was used. The film is about a class forced to kill each other until only one remains. Although Natsumi was considered normal by the school staff and didn't show any obvious issues, after her crime, the investigators and other people were suspecting that Natsumi might have mental health problems. But psychologists and psychiatrists, after they tested her, ultimately determined that Natsumi was not mentally ill, but they found that she suffered from hikikomori syndrome. People with this disorder isolate themselves for many months. They have no interest in socializing, going to school, or working. Some say that as Natsumi was spending too much time on the internet, she started having trouble in making the difference between the real world and fiction. Also, in 2005, a Japanese journalist released a book about this case. In it, the journalist blames Natsumi's father for being abusive and explains that this might be the cause for Natsumi's violent acts. There are many young people who had been traumatized during their childhood, but they don't even think to kill anyone, so we may never understand what made Natsumi so angry as to commit such a brutal crime. A family court determined that Natsumi should be institutionalized for 2 years at a reformatory facility. Her sentence was extended another 2 years to facilitate further psychological evaluation. After she was released from custody, she was placed on house arrest because her doctors wanted to keep an eye on her for some more time. Natsumi was given a graduation certificate that would help her to re-enter society and continue her education. She was released from all punitive measures at age 20 when she and her family moved to an undisclosed location. She has changed her name and is living under a new identity. But the story doesn't end here because Natsumi's crime became a worldwide sensation and an internet phenomenon. Within days, there were posts, fan art, and fanfiction written about Natsumi all over the Japanese web communities. Within no time, Girl A became Nevada Tan. The name originated from a class photograph that circulated online, wherein she wore a hoodie with the text Nevada. The word tan is used in Japanese culture to show a small version of something. The Nevada Tan character is often depicted with short brown hair, the trademark sweater, holding a box cutter, covered in blood and with a murderous smile. Very quickly, Nevada Tan became embedded into popular culture. Memes, fan art, posters, clothes were available. People were romanticizing Natsumi's crimes as if she were a fictional entity. Natsumi's website suddenly became very popular, but was later taken down. Despite this, it has been replicated through the years, and her artwork was recreated by other artists in various forms. Very soon this crime case was picked up by international news sources, and Nevada Tan became a worldwide sensation. The University of Nevada confirmed that in the months following the murder, the hooded sweatshirt that Natsumi wore when she committed the murder became one of their biggest selling items, so it was temporarily removed from their catalog. A German rock band named itself Nevada Tan, and another band dedicated an album to her with the words, "To her and all the little Japanese girls who murder people." The murder sparked ongoing debates in Japan regarding internet exposure to children and lowering the age of criminal responsibility from 14 to 11. But that ultimately never happened. The age had already been dropped from 16 to 14 after the beheading of a 10-year-old boy by a 14-year-old in 1997. The internet built the legend of Nevada Tan, but ultimately this was a tragic outcome to an online argument between two young girls. Let me know what you guys think about this case in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Stay safe.